GM.
Good morning again.
Good morning. Yes. Good morning again, Christina. We've just came out of a DRep budget approval working group that Intersect hosts every week. Wrapped that up and had 5 minutes to stretch my legs before jumping into here. So I'm really glad to see the conversation has been flowing and everybody's opinions are moving, because that's the phase we're in, right? We are now officially in the phase of budget socialization, where the ideas, the proposals that the various committees have been working on for the last several months are here, and they're out in public, and they are ready to be reviewed, discussed, modified, changed, excoriated, preferably not, most part, the ideas behind them, whether or not you agree with them, the ideas behind them came from places that people felt was the right place to come from. So just as that little bit of context, that it is quite possible that there are line items in there that some people will find objectionable, but other people would be able to justify very, very well. So it's a fine line that we're all going to walk together now as we go through these and try to get to what the right line items are to fund for this year. Even if something doesn't make it through this year, it doesn't take it off the table forever and ever. Amen. It could be just for, could be something that may be more appropriate for a future year. There will be things we've missed. I want to double down on that right now. There are definitely things we missed. We definitely, absolutely had people in the last week or so going, hey, what about this? This didn't get in anywhere. How does it fit? And so it's an ongoing process, and I mean, I'm proud to have been a part of it. It's been one of the elements of moving this whole process forward. But I'm just one of those elements, and it'll be really great to see the whole community be able to have their time now to embrace these budgets, look through them, and find the parts that work, the parts that don't, and help us come to a conclusion that it looks like a consensus document that goes on chain for each of 5 budgets that are proposed, so that we can have our first budget process completed. But just a quick intro and a quick hi to everybody, and would just love to hear questions, concerns, comments. Where are we at, guys?
Well, let's just start to break down the budget, unless Epoch and Lido. I mean, you guys have any objections that sound?
I want to mic check on Lido, just because Blackjack, the budget's incredibly long. If we start going line item by line item, we'll end up.
Well, we don't want to do that. I mean, it's just through. Right. I know we'll never get through it.
So if there are immediate questions that the community has that are like top of mind, I would say let's definitely start getting your hands in queue. I also am curious, Lido, if you are actually holding the cup or if you're holding a deployment.
Mic check, holding the cup.
All right, he's there.
Yes. We are not going through every single line. So you go through the line on your own screens, and things that pop up, do the hand thing, and we would call on you, and then we can talk about that. I'll start with one question, and then we'll go to Gold Rush. 50 cents, really? 50 cents?
Yeah, I had that same question.
How did that happen?
He answered that on Twitter.
50 cents. Well, here is the thing, right? The 50 cents rate is being applied to the totals, but then the explanation that each working group is giving is not using the 50-cent rate. They're using whatever rate they're using.
So, okay. So a couple things there. So I could have been really mean and chose 69 cents, which would have been great, right? That would have been one that would have made the math really hard. Or we could pick a rate that was somewhere in a sane spot, right? That would hopefully be lower than we go. I can't, I don't have a crystal ball any more than anybody else in the room does, right? So I can't know for sure what the rate's going to be. None of us really can. So we had to pick a spot to anchor on, because most of the work that will be done will be contracts in fiat amounts to complete, to complete work that's a specific work package. So because of that, the the ADA rate that we go off of allows us to take out enough ADA that there's a safety margin there if it goes up or down.
That part makes sense, Lloyd. Just to make good use of the whole hour here, the part that doesn't make sense is why you are doing one thing and the working group is doing something different. Why is that not alignment?
Well, there is, as far as I know, there is alignment. Originally gave them guidance to use 30 cents. So all of the original guidance was 30 cents, and then there was a big price increase. And after the big
I think
price
that's what we're
increase-
seeing is some of them didn't update it, Lloyd. Like
Okay.
I saw some that were using 30 cents as well. You might want to go take a look or have them, have somebody go back through it and double check.
So
their numbers.
explain the logic to me, the idea of that. It's like the average for the annual year because you're budgeting
Median.
that way. And
median.
then the median price for the entire year, you're expecting that it could go from one range to the other, but more than likely it's going to average out to 50 cents. Is that what you're saying?
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Leads me to a
Seems
different
low.
question.
Okay,
But
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the
Okay,
working
good.
group that's slacking that didn't update that specific numbers. Got it.
And
Mystery
there are
solved.
definitely still bugs in the spreadsheet as far as that goes. Yes, 100%. We know there are bugs in the spreadsheet. I've got a short list of of about 15, I think, that I've heard just on X and just private messages on Discord and whatnot that I've gotten overnight because more eyes are on it, so they're finding the discrepancies and fixing them. That was to be expected in the process.
So Lloyd, I was when you guys were talking about the 50-cent price, when I first saw that, I thought that it may have something to do with maybe you guys were setting up an OTC pipeline for anybody who receives this ADA to be able to sell it without taking the price of ADA on the market. So that was my immediate kind of instinct with that. And that leads me to the question, like, is anybody actually working on that?
Yes,
because we have
that is being worked
we have
on.
ETPs in Europe, we have ETFs that might be set up by Grayscale, and we all see the news that's traveling around. So you can assume that those guys are accumulating. But I kind of assumed that 50-cent price was a discount from the current price because you're going to need to take a haircut when you sell OTC large amounts of ADA. But at the same time, that'll protect the Treasury by protecting the ADA price, right? It would be a damn shame if our first budget withdrawals drive the price of ADA down to, 2 cents or something. That destroys the Treasury, right? So if you could maybe comment on, if you could maybe comment on how that part is going to work.
Absolutely, and you nailed it. That's exactly right. And this has been something that they have worked on through 2024 with ADA that was not Treasury ADA, mindfully, because there was ADA given in the setup by IO and Emergo that was in the founding of Intersect, and that ADA was used to pay the bills of Intersect over the last year, and they did so without affecting the ADA price. So they were already making sure that their methods were correct. Yes, there will be OTC sales of the ADA. Yes, all of those things, which protect, as you said exactly, it protects the Treasury, it protects the Cardano community from price fluctuations of dumping ADA on the standard on and off ramps of the central exchanges. So that is exactly right. That's how it goes. There is a Treasury working group that's their responsibility. Treasury working group is made up of the treasurers of IO and CF and Emergo. That's who they are, and they are the people that are making sure that the money that goes that does have the ADA that has to be sold is sold in a way that does not harm the community. So that is absolutely built into the process.
There is some serious qualms in that little statement, but we'll come back to that. What's up, Blackjack?
I just had a question having to do with the budget summit. So, completely. Patrick brought it up. And it feels as though, at least for the first year, that a budget summit might not be part of the line item, which is currently about 600,000 ADA, and that you would probably more likely default into a virtual instead, at least for the first year until you can work this whole thing out. Because it just seems like a large line item, but at the same time, based on the budget that you have. But I'm just curious, Sarah, your thoughts there on that.
Sure. My thoughts are very simple, that we're not going to complete these large popular and unpopular and difficult things unless we can get together and gather in rooms. The budget summit was not just a single location. Perhaps the naming choice is bad. We should be budget summits because it is actually there are a couple different things happening here. One is annually getting DReps together in rooms, plural, and having them meet, preferably sponsored by hubs, so that we have regional meetups that people can go short distances to do regional meetups rather than long distances to do one big gathering. And that way they can sit and spend hours of time looking at the budget, having the nuanced conversations that need to be had to understand whether or not line items make sense or not, and trying to get that part going. Then there's a second whole part of this, which is that for transparency, we are going to hold quarterly reports where we gather. We provide all of the data of what's been spent in the quarter so that everyone can track and make sure that the things that Intersect says they're doing all the way through until we get an annual report at the end of the year after we've performed an audit. The audit is released, and once the audit is released, by the way, the audit has to be released through community members first and then to the Intersect board so that there's no holding it back or anything like that. And that whole process is encompassed in that line item.
And that kind of leads me to the next thing. That was the other one, the audit working group, 400,000 ADA. Are you going to go outside to use a third-party professional source in order to be able to do that audit? Obviously,
Yes.
you're going to have a third-party audit anyway. But is a lot of this cost internal for your guys' working group, or is it just mostly having to do with the third party?
So audits, typical audit, if you just budget one for a year, you need to budget $100,000 for the audit itself, and you need to budget about $100,000 for the preparatory work that goes into it. The good news is for the preparatory work, the chair of that working group is Jose V, and Jose is adamant that there be community opportunities to do some of that preparatory work. So it is about having bounties to pay for people to do specific parts of that preparatory work from the community to get that done before the audit. That is the other half of that. So it's $100,000 budget to do the audit, $100,000 budget to do the preparation work, which at 50 cents ADA is 400,000 ADA.
Great. Okay. I mean, inclusion is important. So when I'm looking at this budget report, it shows in the level of confidence in quote, you show for the budget summit low. Does that mean potentially it might not get approved if there are some issues with what you're receiving for that budget?
Yeah, so low confidence means that we don't have strong hard numbers on what that line item will cost. It is closer to a back of the envelope.
I see. So this is more of an ambiguity. So you're not sure. So this is high ambiguity for the budget
That's right.
summit. Gotcha. Any other ones? Okay. Very
No
good.
one's we haven't done it before. The closest we have right now is what was spent on like the constitutional workshops, and that's not a good indicator yet. Although we've now started to pull in what Catalyst did with their Catalyst working groups, so we will have a little more data. So we might actually be able to get closer to a lower ambiguity on that over the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Well, I have other questions.
No idea. Okay, Black Dog, calm yourself down.
I know. I need to relax.
I have no idea why we need a whole summit. If the whole process is just open from the beginning and DReps can just follow the process along. A summit sounds like a brainwashing festival. But to come back to that, can you clarify that comment you said about the Treasury working group? This working group is explicitly for the Intersect budget, right? Not any and all Treasury budget. Like the Pragma budget is going to go to whatever address is specified. It's not going to go through
That's right.
any Treasury working
Of course.
group.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Of course. Yeah. There's
Super cool.
this is Intersect's commitment that the Treasury withdrawals that they make will have little
Right.
to no impact on the cost because of the working group that they've set up to manage the funds. We're not going to speak for what Pragma does with their money. That's not any of our business.
That makes sense. I was just clarifying that that working group is over the Intersect's budget only, which makes sense. And now sticking to Intersect and treasury management and contracts and stuff, where do people go to have an input on those contracts? Or is Intersect, is that an internal Intersect process? Like the contracts that vendors will have to sign to be awarded a contract. Where do people go to have an input on what those contracts look like?
Every potential vendor that's selected through the tendering process will have the opportunity to negotiate their contract to their to their satisfaction. That's just the way it works. I can.
Well, I mean, there is stuff about like the numbers and like the reasonability of budgets and those things. But then there was like legal stuff, right? Like the contract that I signed last time from Intersect said I'm not allowed to disparage Intersect, right? So like some of
Yeah,
that,
whatever with that.
those kind of
Okay,
languages,
so
right? Like
so non-disparagement clauses. I'm first of all, IANAL. I am not a lawyer. Right. So start there. If you want legal advice, go talk to a lawyer. They cost lots of money.
well, not legal
He's not
advice.
asking
What
for
I'm
legal
asking
advice.
is
Understood.
the contract.
Understood. But I have
Yeah,
to be
how is
clear.
the contract being created?
Understood.
Like,
Let me
yeah.
get you, Lido. I got you, buddy. I will get you there. Here's the thing. It's not legal advice because I have to be very clear about that because I don't influence the contracts or how the contracts are signed, and I have to make my own decisions about the contracts that I sign. A non-disparagement clause in any contract, regardless of if it's from Intersect or from anybody else.
Okay, sorry, Lloyd. I'm not interested in a non-disparagement clause. I'm asking about the process of those contract drafting. Is that a community thing or an eternal Intersect thing, or you don't know?
That's
Like,
okay.
like who's creating those contracts?
The Intersect legal team will create the contracts and they'll present them, and then you negotiate the contract as a potential vendor every time.
So that's not a Cardano. That's something like basically. So by signing on to Intersect being the administrator, was sort of allowing them to sort of handle all the legal stuff, and that's not really like a community process.
One of the
pretty much.
most important elements of Intersect as a tool is it gives you the community the ability to claw back funds from actors who don't participate or complete their contracts. That's exactly the point. You
Right.
have to have a point where you can bring in legal enforcement, and this is a point that brings in legal enforcement. That's what it's there for.
Yeah,
Not
but
the only
That part
one.
makes sense, but the stuff that comes out of the legal department, that's not on any working group where the community can have influence. That's a purely Intersect legal process, and we're just
That's why I was
sort of
so careful about saying I'm not a lawyer and can't give you legal advice. You cannot go into legal agreements without having lawyers involved. Like that's just how it works.
right.
So is that going to be for all the contracts? Everything that gets paid through Intersect is going to have this signature of something
Yes.
like that.
Yes,
Okay, so
absolutely.
wait a minute.
So do you see
So
do you see
Intersect gets
do you
to
see an
take
issue
over
with
the
that?
Treasury?
No, Intersect every
No.
One at a time.
no, of course not. Intersect is putting out budget requests. The budget requests that they're putting out that get approved, that funding will go through an Intersect legal process in order for you to receive the funds for those items. That doesn't say anything about anybody else's budget requests that they put in. It does not give Intersect full control of the Treasury because anyone can place a info action, get a budget approved, and anyone can take that approved budget and make Treasury withdrawals from it.
Okay, I have a question. If I'm understanding correctly, let's just say that the budget proposed by Intersect's Budget Committee and other committees gets approved, and they start using the budget. Anybody who gets funding from the Treasury that went to this budget is going to have to sign something saying they're not allowed to say negative things about Intersect. Is that what you're saying?
That is not what I'm saying, Christina.
Oh, thank God,
Okay,
thank God.
okay.
Because then that would be like Intersect would be controlling the Treasury because you can't talk bad about Intersect. Oh, thank you.
That's not at all what I was saying. And you know, like you guys, Lido interrupted me 3 times as I was trying to explain why a non-disparagement clause. You have to read it and understand it in order to understand what this means. Non-disparagement.
I know, but I'm not really wanting to talk about specific. I was just wanting to talk about the process, right? Not non-disparagement clause or what's in it, what's not in it.
Right.
The whole thing was what I was wanting to know is those legal agreements. Is there any community involvement in crafting them, or is that
No, he
just
said it was just
a
Intersect.
trust that comes with hiring Intersect? Right. That's the only question I had. Obviously, whatever contracts we have now will be different, and we don't know what's in those contracts, so we can't really start
I mean,
speculating about what will be in
I
those
did get
contracts.
one for
You
something
know.
that was going to be dispersed. So I wonder if it's going to look like that. I mean, if it's going to have something like that, I'm concerned because the one that I
And
got,
those things
had
is
something
not
that
anything Lloyd can
prevented me.
comment
It
on,
prevented me from
right?
signing it. I refused to sign it, so I did not
Yeah,
get the
it,
compensation. So to be full
that
disclosure
makes
Oh,
here.
sense. But part of why I don't want to stay on that conversation because Lloyd's not a lawyer, right?
right. But it does
Of
tell
course,
us that
So we
this
of
can't
whole
course,
really,
of
budget
yeah.
comes
course.
with a huge string. The huge
Yeah,
string
yeah. It
is
just
if
means
this
that we have to
budget is
make
Which
approved,
sure.
they
Mhm.
control it. They get to control and say,
which we
you don't
don't.
get to use any of this if you
That's
say
not
bad
true
things about
though,
us.
right?
But can we get?
That's not
Yeah,
true. That's an every contract is different. Those contracts were before.
Yeah.
exactly.
That was
It
for
doesn't mean
Can I
that
Intersect's
they're
ask
going
a
own
to be
money.
like
question,
that.
please?
Sure.
So
Sorry,
what we need
B
Right.
had her
And
hand up.
yeah, B had her
Lockjack,
hand up.
wait.
So
B.
I
So
am.
my question
Thank you,
is
music.
because DReps or under this or the I don't remember what committee, civics committee, they have also put DRep compensation there. Would that be the same thing where DReps would have to sign contract in order to get their compensation? I'm just like, entertaining the thought of DReps getting compensation in the first place, because the way that you've described it now, it seems like everybody who would be getting funding from Intersect would have to sign some sort of contract to be able to get that funding.
Again, so would there be a contract if? So there's a couple of ifs there that are stacked up, B, and this is okay. Like this is why this conversation is important. The first if is if any DRep funding, direct funding to DReps is approved. First of all, second of all, that line item did 2 things. One, it continued the research that's already been done up to this point. It takes it into a set of working groups to try to make a determination, and then it set aside a sum of money that wasn't being withdrawn right now, but could be withdrawn if there was an agreement that DReps would be compensated through this process, and also that Intersect would administer that. So if both of those things were true, then yeah, there'd be some form of contract between Intersect and those DReps if they were to choose to receive whatever, whether it's compensation, whether it's reimbursement. We don't even know, right? Budgets are about setting out ideas and setting out frameworks of what might or what should or what can happen. So they don't portend an end goal, they portend money moving toward a goal. And so, like that's why, like, you guys are shutting me down on talking about the contract and talking about the contract language. A non-disparagement clause has some very specific ramifications, and you have to talk to a lawyer about whether or not what you would think you'd need to say would actually be disparagement. It would literally be you're lying about what you're representing of the company, not that you're saying something that you believe or know is true but is uncomfortable to the company. That's not non-disparagement.
yeah, but
My
you're not a lawyer
sorry,
though. You can't
can
really
I?
comment on
So
that,
My
right?
prob
That's why I don't want us to go down that
my
line.
So
problem
exactly. So
would
y'all
What's up,
don't want to
B?
have the full conversation, and I'm just like that's what the whole point of the nuance here.
Yeah, but you prefix the conversation by saying you're not a lawyer.
That's
So
right.
that's pretty much shuts
but
the whole
Can
conversation down. So
but
can B
my
we
get
should
her
my
talk about the
follow-up
non-legal
question?
Yeah,
stuff.
let's
Let
just talk
B.
about that.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question there then would be, isn't that sort of problematic if DReps would have to go into it, like looking away from like the legal aspect of all of this? If we're trying to create something that is decentralized, wouldn't that become a very huge problem if somebody, or if a DRep would like to be compensated, they would have to go through Intersect? Why can't we just do it on chain the way that we have with like the SPOs and stuff like that? That's my question. And you don't necessarily need to answer that if it's a very technical question. I'm just seeing like a huge problem with having that as a deal for DReps if we're trying to create something that is, you know, 3 independent bodies of governance, when we have one huge MBO who's going to have to take care of all of that, if that's a part of the agreement.
Got you. Thank you, B. And actually, no, it's no problem, because like my preference is that if there is DRep compensation, that it's through the protocol. That's my personal preference. Again, I'm not the only person that hit the part of making that decision. I can only represent what's been put out by the various committees right now, and only in the fact that I'm a facilitator to bring back feedback to the committees, right? So, like, funny enough, I don't have a dog in any of these races except for the budget committee, where obviously that's the work that we're doing, and we want the funding to do the work we want to do. Other than that, there are no dogs in this race that are mine that I've got to defend. No. Do I think that a DRep should be paid protocol? Absolutely. If we're gonna do it, that's how we should do it.
Then I have my last comment. Will this be? I know there's going to be 3 workshops for DReps within the next few weeks. Will this be communicated to the DReps? Because I feel like that's very important that they know that there are 2 different processes here, where we can do it within the protocol or it can go within Intersect. That's my last question.
Correction. Just quick interjection. Is DRep compensation on the current budget?
There is a line item. There's a line item for DRep compensation that includes research, looking at it, and spending time on a community working group, and then also setting aside some funds that could be withdrawn later if there's a consensus from the working group that DRep should have some payments for whatever the payments come to. It's planning money. It's not set money that has to go out to people.
That was a 1.8 million line item, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we do have some hands
Okay.
up.
And I guess
Can we follow the hands?
I
item?
think Roger, you were first.
No, go ahead, Jenny. I want you to. I'm just going along the lines. Okay, fine. Okay, so
Jenny.
ultimately, I looked at the what a non-disclosure or non-disparagement clause is, and Lloyd, I think you're gonna have to have. You're not a lawyer, but you're gonna need to be able to give this out.
Okay, we're not talking about that, Blackjack.
What do you mean?
We're not talking about non-disparagement clauses.
You're not?
Lino said he's the host,
yes.
and this isn't the topic he wants.
I see. We're moving on.
Move on. We'll talk about the budget
How
and the
about this,
processes.
Blockjack? If there are no questions at the end,
you
you can bring it back up.
Sure. Yeah. I'll
All
hang
right.
out.
I just wanted to backtrack to that first question that I asked about, protecting the ADA price. That's going to lead to inefficiencies in spending the Treasury. So some of these prices or some of these bids might be a little inflated because they know they're going to have to take the OTC trade, right? I'm curious, what's the general OTC discount? Like, are these guys whoever's buying this ADA, are they getting 10% off, 20% off? And that's going to lead me to how much these prices need to be inflated. So, like I said, it leads to inefficiencies with the Treasury. However, it protects the ADA price. So, just to put that in context.
Yeah, totally. And I can't speak to it because I don't, nor would I ever have access to those contracts that we can't allow to have like any kind of, they have to be negotiated at its OTC. So it has to be negotiated at the time of the transfer. Will there, that's, it's exactly right. There will be some form of discount applied, but the discount is applied at the moment. I know that the primary way that this is working is it's the financial whip. It's the work in progress that says we have this much is due to be spent over this period of time, next month, next 3 months, whatever they deem is most efficient in the Treasury working group, so that they can sell what they need to sell in order to cover the fiat demands, not going too far in the future in case there's volatility, and not going to, not waiting too long and going to the last minute and having to sell too much ADA. It's a task I definitely don't want. That's a scary thing to have to take that responsibility, and I want to leave that to the people that truly are the experts at it. And that is who will be doing that, is people who are Treasury management experts, and they're going to do their best to sell as little and be as efficient as possible to meet our financial needs, because at the end of the year, what would be the best thing is to say, hey, or even at the end of the first withdrawal, hey, we don't need that second withdrawal because there's enough money to cover it because we've been so good with it and the price of ADA went up. That would be the dream scenario, right? But even if that scenario doesn't happen, it's something like, like we've limited the, any kind of problems or needing to come back for extra money and come to the DRep saying, we're sorry, it's all spent and we need more in order to meet our obligations. That's obviously the worst case scenario, and we want to avoid that at all costs. And then, well, not all costs, but, all reasonable costs. And then that leaves us with, where's that middle ground? And it's got to be somewhere in that middle where obviously the OTC people make some money off of it. They gain the value of getting the ADA without it going through an exchange. But that we also get the most value that we get out of it because we're getting our development as a community. So that's the line's got to be walked, and I can't speak to where that number would be, and it'll probably be different at every sale.
Yeah, I appreciate.
ADA to the moon, baby.
Can I comment on
I
this one?
appreciate you laying that out.
I think this is an important topic. This what is the base ADA price? This is actually something that like me and my co-founder have argued about since the dawn of time. How much percent do we keep in ADA? How much do we keep in other things? And I think there's a lot of discussion still to be had on what it even means to be a fiduciary in the Web3 world, right? Because you could say, let's minimize transactions and keep everything in ADA, but now you're also really letting in a lot of risk. And if you're supposed to be the financially conservative one in the group, then that like how are you gonna turn to the financially conservative person and then be like, yo, put it all in ADA? It's like, trust me, bro. So we definitely need something more advanced, in my opinion. But with this talk of ADA price, I honestly think the best thing to do is to literally use the last ADA price. This is my suggestion. Just whatever it is that is the price, you put it in and you have it be live fucking updating in the spreadsheet. You can have a little script there that calls CoinGecko, and you can literally make this decision as late as you can make it, right? I can't stand the constant debate about like what is the right amount of ADA to use, and I feel like the worst thing to do is to just let committees do whatever they want. So I am concerned that I heard that there's different base ADA prices being considered in different committees. I think that's a huge red flag. I would love to see there be a single approach and a single price that is used. And also, we should take into account, the recent growth in ADA, and I don't think just saying, hey, we want to be, pad the back end or whatever the statement is, right? Be conservative, whatever it is, right? Like that doesn't work for me because we're talking about millions of dollars, and I don't want to create any slush funds. Like I don't want any magic money that's like has no purpose.
Yeah.
Same reason I don't want Catalyst to be funded right now. So, can you please speak to how we can ensure that we're going to do this in an effective way, and why not try to be closer to the current price?
So thank you for that, Epoch. And it's actually, I mean, this is, first of all, we were at 30. So our planning price was 30 cents for most of the time. Then there was a really nice appreciation for a while there. Then, so that forced us to reconsider and move to 50 cents, so we did already move it up based on the recent performance. So because it did start to move that marker, it was at 30 very reliably, but now it is pretty reliably at 50, at least for now. The reason we can't use the live price feed is that we literally have to write a budget info action that has to get approved. It needs to be on chain for 6 weeks. After it's on chain for 6 weeks, then we can put a withdrawal action, and that has to match the other action in order for it to be constitutional. So for us to do that, we have to settle on a price. I totally agree with you. No slush funds. And I'll just wrap this up too. The most important thing about the no slush funds, that's why Intersect and the CDH are both nonprofits. They cannot have money just laying around that doesn't have a purpose, that is profit or what. They can't do that. So they are a perfect vehicle to go through and then whatever's left over, it's either given to the next year's budget. We would withdraw this much less because there's this much already in the Intersect's funds, and so there's that much here, so we don't need to withdraw next year this amount, or it gets returned and then we make a different withdrawal for the, basically pull the same ADA back out because we returned it and then ask for the ADA back because we're doing the next year. You see what I mean? So we can't hold those surpluses. The conversation we can have is what should Intersect hold for emergencies. That gets a conversation we can have, like, we can agree on that. Like that, it could be 0, or it could be some whatever 1%, 2% by whatever number is palatable.
Yeah, I appreciate the answer, Lloyd. So yeah, I just want to say thank you for that answer. I completely agree. No slush funds is. I'm glad to hear that's kind of consistent. I do think, just to leave with a parting, action or idea, I still think updating to a higher price of ADA is a good idea. You will literally not hear me say this too many more times. I promise you that, because I do believe in cycle, the cycle, the 4-year cycle that Bitcoin leads. And I think we'd be idiots to not acknowledge that. And the reality is that this is a bull run year. And we can define what that means in another discussion. But regardless, there should be a strategy, I think, for this year that may not be the strategy that we want to take next year or the year after. So while I totally understand the padding into this and into that, great, but I just want people to take a step back and say, okay, let's pretend like you've been here a decade, because I have been here too many years, seen this stupid wheel go around and around. So we're going to be very, very different in decision making 2 years from now than we are right now. So this is why, Lloyd, I really wanted to see a more forethought from the committees and from the budgets. Seeing 1 year flash in a pan is great, but what I'd love to see is year 2 projection, year 3 projection. Are you winding down? Is it 100%? Is the number you're going to need next year higher than the number you need this year? Are you planning to run at a surplus? I don't know that, and I don't know what each budget is even thinking or what their strategy is for that. So that's the piece that I think is really missing so far is that the projection. And I'll leave you with that, Lloyd. Thank you for coming on the show. I would love to have you here every 2 weeks until this is resolved. Feel free to book the time, my man. And I just hope you take my feedback. Thank you.
100%. Definitely
That
taking the feedback
was
back.
dope.
Thank you so much, man.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good morning. I just pinned something up on the Jumbotron. I honestly, look, I'm a finance guy. I said this in a space yesterday too, and this whole budget thing is going around, and it's honestly driving me crazy. It's we're trying to form constitutions and departments and different things, right? But honestly speaking, if we look at the primary, the grassroots, just dial it back a bit. To be a citizen of this digital nation state, you have to hold a highly volatile asset. We were just talking about how they were planning it to be at 50 cents and peg it to 35 and vice versa, right? And currently, as it stands, there's no way to retain value on the chain. I can't pay for coffee in ADA right now. They don't set my mortgage rates based on Cardano's value. They do it based on the dollar. So as long as that holds true and we don't have enough stablecoin liquidity on chain, a lot of people aren't going to care about governance in the long run. If you're asking people to basically put forward their hard-earned money or their net worth for people who are all in on this thing, they're going to be very skeptical to hold it unless we actually solve the stablecoin liquidity issue first. I pinned this up because I feel like before we even talk about any of these other things, I think it's an all hands on deck. We need to figure this out kind of situation. We still don't have stablecoin liquidity. I hold SNEC and a few other CMTs to diversify, but there's no guarantee that I can retain my value and my purchasing power to put food on the table on this chain. And currently, we basically have ADA rights, but if those could be delegated down to a fiat denominated token or whatever, it doesn't matter which one, but we need a market agnostic and kind of altruistic entity that provides and governs stablecoin liquidity on the chain. I put together my thoughts in that Jumbotron post. The other thing is currently as it stands, for example, if you have if you're Tesla or your company, right? They have their own treasury, they have their own cash moat, and to do operations, they expand that cash moat and spend that money. But in crypto on Cardano, your treasury is ADA, and basically right now we're talking about dollar values because that ADA will be sold at some point of time. So if everybody that's holding ADA is going to be guaranteed subject to sell pressure and dilution because just new supply being released onto the market, I think it's only fair that we also ask in return, okay, these budgets are being set forth, but how are they going to be repaid? How are they going to go out and generate more money? And people might come and say, hey, but they're generating value and bringing new users. And I'm like, okay, cool. Can we track how much money is being attracted to the chain? How much trading volumes and fees is going back to the treasury and things like this. I think right now we're just talking arbitrary numbers. This is how this all feels to me. I honestly don't even think we need any committees right now before we figure out how to get stable coins properly addressed. And even after that, I think every single proposal to access money from the treasury should be accompanied by a section where it details how you're going to pay it back. And if you can't, we need a credit score system established to basically make sure that the same people can't get access to these funds in the future. Frankly speaking, I don't own any Cardano for this reason, amongst many. I personally think we need to prioritize stablecoin liquidity and also cross-chain liquidity. We could fund Catalyst within the ecosystem all we want, but without proper bridges, it's just going to be the same whale splashing their money around from protocol to protocol. But if we actually properly incentivize, like we have Midnight coming out with the Dust token, but I honestly have no clue how that's going to link back to bringing revenue to ADA or the treasury. So what I'm trying to say is Catalyst is good and all, but imagine if we actually thought outside of Cardano, we could even Catalyst fund some project on Solana and take 20% of the revenue to the treasury. Overall, I guess stablecoin, bridges, external liquidity, and think about putting money back in the treasury just as well as we do taking out of it. I think in that order of importance as well. I honestly don't see why we're doing all this without that first criteria, though, because frankly, after this bull run, many people might just exit. So that's just
Thanks
my
for
thoughts.
the
What's up, Ken?
Hey, sorry if I'm shivering, but it's darn cold outside. Just want to do like in regards to the DRep sessions, the three coming up. Since I am in the working group, I might share some light. So first off, it's not decided that we will have DRep compensation, but the first one coming up tomorrow is gonna shed some light and educate a little bit. And there are coming people from outside the Cardano ecosystem to educate and share experiences. And if we decide to go for the DRep compensation, we're gonna brainstorm and get together and come up with what kind of on-chain metrics, how is this distributed, and stuff like that. And then secondly, I in regards to the rep compensation, if it is or not, is the number 1.8 set in stone, or is it flexible, to put it like that? What do you think?
Entirely flexible as to whether the DReps want to fund it at all. They can change the amount. They can choose whatever they want. Like I said, as you pointed out, Ken, Eric, you guys are starting the workshop process as volunteers, bringing in people from other ecosystems, doing the work to start to educate, inform, and understand the nuances of the issue so that you can make recommendations. So the money was set aside so that both research could continue along that vein and also be able to fund some if it was necessary. If the DReps just don't want to fund it and they don't want to consider that in the net change limit right now, then that's fine. They don't have to do that. It's their flexibility and their option because this is their decision to make.
Thank you.
Okay, Jenny. Now are you ready to say something?
I know. I see B, and she's spicy. I don't want to get in trouble. B, are you there?
Yeah, no, I got a question surrounding the CDH because I see that Charles is having a space right now talking about Intersect setup, and I was wondering if you could explain like the relationship between the CDH and Intersect, because from the budget, CDH is going to be managing it, but Intersect is the one proposing it.
Absolutely, and no problem. B. So basically, it's a protection vehicle. It was set up that way. It's designed in a way that there is a place that funds can sit that have better tax implications than sitting in a U.S. corporations, so that they can go to different jurisdictions and the work be done. CDH, it has to be. The way that it's designed, it has a requirement in its founding documents that say that any funds spent must be for the benefit of the Cardano ecosystem. It's a nonprofit entity, and it's just like I said, it's that vehicle that they chose to put funds in when they formed Intersect. They felt the need to form this second entity that would hold money that would be entirely beholden to Intersect. However, it's important to note that if Intersect were ever kicked off, it could be from CDH, and CDH could replace Intersect as its administrator with a different MBO that could be the administrator. So that's the other reason it was like a way to protect the funds from Intersect running off into the sunset with the money. So so that's what the vehicle's there for. It's there to actually protect any funds that would be entrusted from the Treasury for the execution of things that are in the budgets.
Thank you very much. We probably have time for one or two more
Okay,
questions, just to be respectful of Lloyd's time. I have one. Jenny, do you
I
have one?
go. I go. No, I finally go. I just wanted to be respectful of the hands because I mean, I don't have much in the sense that I don't want to clarify anything. I just want to tell you that for next week, I guess I will talk. I mean, I have to read this, right? I'm more of like I don't have form an opinion without really drilling into somewhat, really reading this stuff. And it just dropped yesterday. So I'm just gonna do that. And by next week, I know that I'm gonna want to talk about certain things that are very important in my perspective, like the RFP process. Can people, projects or anyone building here can become a supplier? Make sure that that is very clear. Also, what we talked about today about the contract and the attorneys or no attorneys. I think that maybe we can find some middle ground to some of these contracts to not have this kind of thing, and maybe one of your workshops consider having a contract review process where you can include the community and craft one that it's legal, assisted by your legal, into something that the community will feel comfortable with, right? Before we actually grant any monies, right? We need to know what those contracts look like. So that was just a perspective from this call today. Then to anyone, please review the contracts that they're at the Cardano forum, the proposals, I'm sorry. And I did want to say that the numbers are not so bad in the sense that, it's not like, oh, but, in any negotiation table, you can always knock down 10%, and anything is always, you can bring it down, right? So there's going to be everybody pushing for their side that they think that you can knock it down, and it's going to be noisy, and it's okay. We need this. So just let's prepare for that and be productive and constructive. And thank you so much, Lloyd. That's it.
No worries, Jenny. Thank you so much. Just remember, my 10% down is your 10% up. So we, that's actually the whole point, is that those numbers can move in both directions, and they very well should. If we uncover things that aren't funded that need to be, we need to make room for them. And if we uncover things that shouldn't be funded for now, let's put them aside and let's talk about them more. I think that is a great idea about doing the contract evaluation. I'm going to raise it to Lawrence. I'll raise it to the attorney for Intersect and see if we can't set something up to have some kind of a review of what are the, let's call them the non-negotiables. What are the things that absolutely have to be in a contract in order for Intersect to be comfortable? And let's get down to that bare minimum brass tack and see if that's something that we can all agree on, that would be good enough for the community. I don't know if that's even possible. That's something that I have to totally talk to the attorneys about and see. But I do know that every contract is a negotiation, and so those, if we can get anything that's really truly objectionable or chilling out of the contract. That would be engaging members of Intersect or members of the Cardano community. Then I think that's a good impulse, and I think we should pursue it. So I will take that back, and we'll see if we can make that happen, Jenny. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Super cool. Thanks again, Lloyd, for coming. Looking forward to more conversations. Do you have time for one more question?
I'll take one more. If it's you, Darlington, I'll take a question from you.
My question has to be, because I think one gripe, yes, that's the word. One gripe the community has right now with the budget process and the transparency of it seems to be this seemingly unnecessary process of it going from committees to the budget committee, right? So what's the value of the budget committee again? Why can't these committees just do their budget directly with the community and put it on chain? What does the budget committee, why is that necessary?
The point is facilitation of the process. You do need some form of financial expertise involved, and we can either make sure we have financial expertise in every committee so that every separate committee has a separate financial expertise that then you as a broader community are going to have to take different kinds of justifications from different kinds of groups, or we can consolidate our efforts, have economies of scale, and consolidate the financial people into one place, bring all the budgets through that, get some good feedback on those budgets so that they can be better and they can have spent more time and energy on improving them, and then having a little bit more consistency across those budgets. The original goal in the original SIP 1694 was one budget for Cardano. So this committee was formed out of the idea of one budget for Cardano and finding a way through to a single consensus budget out of multiple possible entities. It was a gargantuan task. But in the end, what has happened is that the DRep, or not the DReps, the delegates as you know, at the Constitutional Convention changed that and chose multiple budgets. So therefore, what we have as a budget committee, the corporate we of the budget committee now, is their job and their role is to consolidate the Intersect budgets and socialize them, make sure that they're out there and that their impact is right, and that they will do good work. And then it's also to handle the audits and the financial work that has to go on, the contract work that has to go on. All of that boring administrative stuff, honestly, is the part that the budget committee handles with the operational services of Intersect, so that all of the committees focus on just being the committees. They're just technical, or they're just open source, or they're just marketing and growth. They are not dealing with the minutiae of this that has legal ramifications and has real ramifications if you do it wrong. And so it's a way of giving that kind of efficiency to the process, at least the
That
Intersect part
makes
of it.
sense. Well, efficiency seems to come at the cost of transparency or lack of transparency. So maybe there's a happy middle
I think
ground
there is.
in the future, because right now that's not there. And I suppose with this process, there's nothing really stopping the individual communities to having their working draft budgets public.
There's nothing. Right.
too.
There is nothing. And that could have
good.
happened. And quite frankly, that's what I was advocating for back in October and November, just so we know. In fact, I know I had a conversation with Blockjock when we were in Dubai, and I was talking about how I wish we could just put the numbers out now. So, that was
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, it's absolutely, how I've been advocating for the process. It's a learning journey for everybody, me included. And, even though I can advocate for what ended up being what probably would have saved some anxieties in the end, I had to also work within the process and the parts that I had available to me. So I have to keep working with these teams, keep building up their confidence and their abilities to put this out sooner. Lawrence said it yesterday in one of our calls that we did yesterday, that he really feels that this next year it's all about being more open, getting more out quicker, rather than having anything held back, so that there's more time for the community to engage. So, and that's top of level of Intersect saying that. So like I really do feel like that is culturally and institutionally getting built into Intersect now. So that's what we'll see in 25 going into 26.
Okay, sounds good.
I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for having me today. Please come to if you want synchronous conversations over the next couple of weeks, please come to our AMA sessions. They're every Tuesday, every Thursday, every other Saturday. They're at lou.ma/Cardano budget process. Please sign up, please attend, and I will be back in 2 weeks, and I'll come back every 2 weeks. We'll have our own banter on budget every 2 weeks until we get this over the finish line, guys. Thank you all.
Thanks, Lloyd.
So much.
And I definitely check the WIP, or the summary of categories. It only shows 170 million ADA that's requested. I'm not sure if that's correct. It sounds way off from what I've seen in other numbers. So this particular budget doc is not correct, I don't think.
All right, thank you.
I think that by next week, hopefully all those numbers are mixed up. I've been hearing that they're all mixed up. So hopefully by next week we'll have good numbers.
Yeah, that sheet was really not ready for public consumption. What was supposed to have happened is that the summaries were supposed to be put in Markdown. It didn't quite happen that way. They got released as a link to the sheet, so you guys are seeing all the inside baseball as they're trying their best to get everything up to speed. It is what it is, and it will be.
Yeah, but if you add it like on those forums, if you add the numbers that were typed in there in the forum posts, it's a lot less ADA.
Yeah, and
it doesn't matter.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're still getting the spreadsheet up to speed. The numbers there were closer to accurate at the time. There is still there was one that they said that the number was wrong that we had to go fix, but I think the others, everybody had already agreed they were pretty accurate. So so we're getting closer.
I'm gonna ask about the net change limit, but if you don't have the time, we'll do it some other time.
Go ahead, B. I'll take it now. I'll just be late to my appointment. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the question I got from one of our listeners was that why wasn't it changed so that it's it's starting at the earlier this year instead of like starting from the time when the budget would be published. So like for now, I haven't read the proposal yet, but for now I think it's like, say it could have started from January, but now it's like proposed to start from June, something like that. Oh, sorry.
Okay, because what was trying to be established, and this is again going back to the Treasury experts and deferring to them, is that going ahead and setting an annual cycle, whatever the annual cycle is, and they're doing January 1st to December 31st, 73 epochs between January 1st to December 31st. That was to set precedent on what the fiscal year is. So that's what that is for. So it is very different than when the budgets go out. The budgets can come all during the year based on what's available in the net change limit. So a budget can come as late as September, October even maybe, if they can get it through the process fast enough, where, if there's money remaining in the net change limit that someone feels they should use it, and the DReps feel that they should give it to them. Well, great. That's actually why net change limit is not. It's our break. It stops us from overspending beyond whatever we've as a community agree we're comfortable on. So that's why it should be January to December each year. This year that we're doing the budget late, we're doing the budget late. We didn't. Again, if I'd had my way about it, we'd have had this done last year. But we had to get through the Plum and hard fork before we could do this. So we had no choice but to get through the Plum and hard fork. Now that we've done that, now that this is officially ours, we can officially do this process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love you guys. Love everybody in the Cardano community. Thank you all so much for taking time with me today. Your attention is your most important resource, and you shared it with me today, and I am greatly appreciative of it. I'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Lloyd.